Coco Gauff is dropping 32 games in 3 matches at a tournament she is supposed to be dominating. Let that frame everything you're about to hear, because what happened on Court Central in Rome on Tuesday was not just a near upset. It was a full blown crisis that Gauff survived on instinct alone, 1 match point from a flight home. Iva Jovic, ranked inside the top 20, yes, but nobody's idea of a Roland Garros grade roadblock, had Gauff a set and a breakdown pinned behind the baseline, her first serve percentage cratering, her forehand producing the kind of short, loopy balls that a player of Jovic's flat ball striking absolutely feasts on. I was watching the second set closely, and at 5-4, 40-30 on Jovic's serve, there was a moment, a second serve return from Gauff that floated a full meter long, where you could see the body language shift. Head down, shoulders soft. The American was mentally halfway to the press conference. She said it herself, and I respect the honesty. My head was almost to the locker room. That is not spin. That is a world number two telling you she had mentally conceded a match at the Italian Open quarterfinal stage. Sit with that for a second. Now, here's the bit that actually bothers me, because this isn't an isolated moment of fragility. This is a pattern. At Roland Garros last year, Gauff was stretched to 3 sets by players ranked well outside the top 30. In Dubai earlier this season, she saved 5 or 6 match points against Elise Mertens, and she referenced that herself in Rome, almost as if that escape act has become a psychological crutch rather than a warning signal. You cannot build a Grand Slam campaign on the mythology of your own comeback stories. At some point, the margin runs out. What is specifically going wrong tactically? I was looking at the tape and noticed that Goff's serve, which was genuinely weaponized at the US Open in 2023, is not functioning as a point construction tool on this Roman clay. Her kick serve into the deuce court weight, when it lands with the right RPM, it pushes right handed opponents wide and opens the court for her inside out forehand, is either sitting up at mid spin or missing the box entirely. Against Jovic, she converted just 1 of 5 breakpoint opportunities in the first set, 1 from 5. When your first strike isn't giving you free points and your breakpoint conversion is that low, you are going to get into trouble against anyone with a flat penetrating ground stroke. And Jovic has exactly that. The 19-year-old hits through the ball with a remarkably clean contact point, taking pace early off both wings. Against a Gauff who was sitting 2 feet behind the baseline and retrieving rather than dictating, she looked every bit a potential top 10 player. The problem for Jovic, and this is the hidden dynamic that saved Gauff's tournament, is that she is 19. She has never won a match at this stage against a player of this caliber, and the moment she had Gauff on the ropes, the occasion tightened her strings. At 5-6 in the second, serving to force a tiebreak, Jovic produced 2 consecutive double faults and a forehand into the net that would have been unthinkable 3 games earlier. Goff didn't win that game as much as Jovic gifted it, and the American was smart enough, mentally tough enough to take it without blinking. That's the ruthless edge that separates Goff from almost everyone else on the women's tour right now. Even when she's playing well below her ceiling, even when her tactics are reactive rather than proactive, her competitive DNA does not switch off. The third set, 6-2, clean, dominant, every break built on aggressive first strike tennis, was the version of Coco Gauff that makes her a legitimate Roland Garros favorite. The forehand was loaded and deep, the serve found its rhythm, and her court coverage, which had looked labored in the opening set, was suddenly electric. She was anticipating angles, pressing the net on short balls, and closing points with the kind of baseline aggression that barely gave Jovic a look. That third set performance is both the argument for her title credentials and the most frustrating thing about watching Goff right now, because the question every coach, analyst, and serious tennis observer is asking is, why does she need the near death experience to unlock that level? It should not take a match point to trigger the best version of this athlete. She knows it. In the press conference, she was disarmingly self aware. I think for me, it's more focusing on staying on top of the opponent when I do have the lead in the first set. That's deceptively simple language for a very complex problem. Goff is starting these matches well. She was up a break in the first set against both Solana, Sierra, and Jovic, but she is not converting those positional advantages into closed sets. She's going 3-1 up, and then instead of pressing the accelerator, she subtly backs off. The unforced errors spike. The first serve percentage dips. The opponent breathes, stabilizes, and suddenly the momentum has swung without any single catastrophic moment you can point to. It's a slow bleed, not a sudden collapse. If you're a purist, you're going to hate this, but part of me wonders whether Goff's reliance on her coaches between sets, she explicitly cited their help in turning the Jovic match around, is a double-edged sword at this level. The best version of a champion on clay makes in-match adjustments instinctively, between points, not between sets. Carlos Alcaraz doesn't need to sit in the chair and be told to come to the net more. Iga Swiatek at her peak was recalibrating her spin rate on the second ball in rallies game by game on field. Gauff is not there yet, and that is the single biggest developmental gap between where she is and where a player capable of dominating a Roland Garros campaign needs to be. Now, here's the bit that should genuinely worry the rest of the draw. Mirra Andreeva is next, and this is one of the most dangerous quarterfinal matchups Gauff could have drawn. Andreeva is 17. She is aggressive from the back of the court. She hits a two-handed backhand that stays remarkably low on clay, and she has shown zero psychological deference to higher-ranked opponents this season. She is not going to hand Gauff a third set. If Gauff drops the opening set against Andreeva, she will need to solve her own tactical passivity problem in real time with no margin for error against a player who plays faster and flatter than Jovic and will absolutely attack a second serve sitting above net height. I want to be clear about something. Gauff is not in bad form. She's in complicated form, which is actually harder to fix. Bad form is simple. You tighten the patterns, go back to the serve forehand combination that built her game, and trust the muscle memory. Complicated form means the weapons are there, the physical condition is excellent. Her movement in that third set was breathtaking. But the mental architecture of how she constructs a match, how she manages a lead, how she closes under pressure, is still fractured in a way that no coaching session between sets fully resolves. Over the next 3 months, the French Open, Wimbledon, the hard court American swing, I am predicting a Gauff who reaches at least one more Grand Slam final and wins a title somewhere on the tour. The talent ceiling is not in question, but if she cannot figure out how to close a first set when she is up a break at 3-1 30 love, she will not win Roland Garros. A Swiatek, a Sabalenka, a prime Andreeva will punish that passivity in a way that Jovic, for all her quality, simply couldn't. The Italian Open has handed Gauff a gift disguised as a scare. She has faced match points, fought back from the edge twice in 3 matches, and she is still standing in the quarterfinals for the third consecutive year. If she is as smart as I believe she is, she takes everything that almost broke her this week and she builds something genuinely dangerous out of it. The rest of the tour has been warned, but the warning cuts both ways. Coco Gauff, sort out your first set closing, or Rome will not be the last tournament that makes you sweat.